Hello, everybody. This is Billy Cultus, and this may be sort of a surprise because I don't usually do these more formal tutorial-like videos, but here I am doing one today. So the thing we're going to try to do today, I'm going to try to be as brief and concise about it as possible. But, some of you know me, but what we're going to try to do today is just this. We are going to be showing you how I set up the basis for a human head sculpt if I want to make a human head in Dreams. Now the purpose behind this video is not really going to be doing it like a lot of detail work, and you know what I'm saying. I'm not going to be making some kind of photorealistic head or something. It's not really to wow you visually necessarily, but what it really is intended to do, what I'm hoping will do, is get you over that stage that you can have, which is, like the blank slate, I think is what they call it. But it's where, you got to go from nothing to having something. Because really, when you got something to work with and to modify, you're in good shape. You can tinker with that, and it's a lot easier to tinker with something. But when you're stuck with nothing, it can often be, especially if you're new, and this is true of, kind of a lot of art mediums, but true of Dreams for sure. So what I want to do is try to get you, maybe help get you over that hump. If you're thinking you have to make a human head in Dreams, and you don't have nothing, and you got to start from nothing, like we're starting here. Now we've got this cube in this scene. I've kind of got this scene set up so that we could sculpt it, but you don't need this cube. You could start with a purely empty scene. But I'm going to take you through it step by step, the simple steps I use to arrive at a basis, which can be pretty much tweaked to your liking. Once you got that form down, you can tweak it as much as you want. And I will say also that this is my methodology I'm showing you here. Now, although I would recommend, if you're like new, just starting out, new to Dreams or whatever, you might want to follow the steps pretty close that I use here, at least for your first 3 or 4, tries or whatever. Once you get comfortable with it, though, none of this stuff is written in stone. You can tweak it to your liking, you can experiment, and in fact, I would encourage you to do so, because, that's how you arrive at your own style. Everybody's got a style they're trying to achieve and a look they want for something, and by all means, experiment when you get comfortable. This is just to help you maybe over the initial hurdle. I would say if I had to rank this tutorial, it's probably like a beginner to intermediate level. I think beginners should probably be able to pull this off. I mean, if you can open the sculpt tools, and do some very basic, we're going to be doing very basic stuff today. It's not going to be super fancy, but let's get right down to it. Now, like I said, this cube you don't necessarily need. That's just kind of got that set up for our activities today, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our menu, and we're going to get our modes, and of course we're going to head to sculpt mode. Now step 1 in this process for me is making the head object that I'm going to be creating the head out of, the initial head object. And this might be, for people, the hardest of all possible parts of any sculpt, but this is step 1, the head object. I'm going to use kind of maybe a flat light gray color for this. I don't know. We could have just gone with the pink, but I'll just use that. You don't have to change the color at the outset if you don't want to. But we're going to get back in here. Now, whenever I do this, I find I like to use this curve tool. And I like to have it on stamp. See where it says stamp there? It's on stamp. Now it should be set to stamp. If it's not set to stamp, you can hold down the L1 button and press triangle, and that will switch between stamp and smear. And for this operation, I'm going to want it on stamp. So I'm going to make it, I don't know, so big. Now what we want to do, I'm going to put it on precise move. That way this thing is level. Actually, let's go back, reset it, because when you go to precise move, if you go back and click the shape again on precise move, it will stabilize it, so it's now perfectly level, and we don't want to move it in any way. I'm just going to size it up and kind of put it right in the center of our brick cube table thing we've got going on right here, like about there. Now, as an initial part of this, we are going to definitely want to use the mirror feature. So I'm going to go to Guides, which is where the mirror is located, and we're going to get in and click the mirror. Additionally, I'm going to set clipped mirror active. Now, clipped mirror is good. You don't necessarily have, but clipped mirror is going to be very handy for a human head. Now, I know and I realize human heads in reality are not symmetrical on both sides usually at all. But for our purposes, this saves a lot of hassle if you just set this up this way. Now, I'm not going to just stamp this. I'm going to hit hold L1 and press square. That's going to take me into a modification setup. But before we go any deeper with this, I'm going to reverse just a touch, and we're going to talk about something with the mirror tool. You want to make sure when you're setting up your object for sculpture that your mirror plane is the right orientation. So if I do a test and stamp this out, let's just see where the orientation of the mirror plane is. Okay, that's the right one. We want it straight down, like going right down the center, like that. Now, you want to make sure it's like that. And basically, whenever you place an object, this is what's happening. Sometimes you'll get this. The way that you set up where that is going to be is by where your camera is. See how I'm moving the camera? So what Dreams does, apparently, is if I'm looking dead on like this, my mirror plane is going to be aligned this way. Conversely, if I was looking dead on this way, it's going to align that way. So you want to be mindful of this. And if you stamp it out and your camera's angled like this, say, then your mirror, it's going to, what Dreams will do is it's going to try to decide between the two, you know, this axis and that axis, and it's going to choose the closest your two on your rotation and put it along that axis. So generally you'd want to be looking straight down the axis you want your mirror tool aligned at. And I believe it does it up and down. No, it doesn't do it up and down. It only does it on an X or a Y, I believe, but not a Z, but either way, that's a side thing you want to be mindful of. But we got to have our mirror tool aligned straight down the center like this. So, but instead of stamping it, I am going to hold L1 and press square for this shape. And what that does is it takes us into the, we can edit our shape, and since it's a curve and it's set to stamp, we'll have these grab nodes, and you can grab that curve, and as you can see, our mirror is active, so what it's doing is mirroring, and we want to try, this can be a little finicky, I will admit, but we want to try to line this up. And what I like to do when I'm making a head is I like to, I don't know, stretch it out about so far. I put it a little bit in front like this. This is looking from a side profile, because this is our mirror, this is the front. That's where our mirror plane is aligned, and this is the side. So I like to put it about like that. And you want to rotate around to the front too to kind of make sure it's working, you know, you're not getting this kind of thing, because that'll happen sometimes. That's why it can be a little finicky. But there we are. I like to have it about like that, and as lined up as possible. And then, and what you do to be able to do this is I'm just holding down R2, and if I want to rotate while I keep this thing stable like that, then I keep holding down R2, but then I also hold down R1, and I can move with the right stick roundabout like that and look at it from different angles without having it move around. If I release R1, don't release R2, because that'll let go of your grab. But now we put this, like I said, I want to line this up, basically grab that point and line it about like that angle. It's not such a horrible big deal. Make sure I try to get it as on point as we can there with that. But that's that. Now you're going to have these other two in between the two terminus points. I wouldn't mess with these. I'm not going to mess with these. That is, it's a choice you make. But these basically shrink it and change the size a little bit. of either one of the terminus points so you can have it taper, but that's not going to be important in this particular case for me. Well, you might experiment with that later. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab these inner points and I'm going to try... First, this one I'm going to put it at almost like a 90 degree to the first one. And we're going to bring it out basically like so. And try to, you know, make sure it's lined up as centered as we can get it released. There, that's good. And we're going to straighten up this central line. And you can see it's kind of going weird there. That just means you need to straighten it out with the mirror and everything. And get that like that. And the next, I think I'll straighten that up a little too, because it's now that I've put it there, it's going all wonky, but we can figure that out. Just go to this angle. And I'm going to just set it up so that it's nice and about straight like that. This actually kind of doesn't matter as much how finicky you are with this, but I'm being a little bit... Okay. Like that. Okay, that'll work. That's in there. Release. There we go. Now we got our thing set up, and all we need to do to stamp it is stamp in place. Hit this button. There you go. We've got it. So that is step 1 complete. We do have now our head object set up. This is how I do step 1 of this process. The head object is secure. So I'm going to exit sculpt mode briefly, and I'm going to do one thing. This is just the thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to turn off the loom noise for clarity's sake. This is not necessarily a part of the sculpting process for a human head, if you so choose. We got step 1 complete. Now on to step 2. Get back into the sculpture, L1X. We're back in the sculpture. Now we don't need this curve anymore, for my purposes. The rest of this sculpt is going to be accomplished mostly just using a cube. And really, we're not going to modify the cube a whole much. It's just going to be a cube. Now I'm going to take out a cube, and again, this is step 2. We want to be aware that when we take out this cube, we're still on precise move. And we don't want to, if you do mess up the alignment, like if you get it de-leveled or something, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to demonstrate how this works. Like, see? Now, it's going to be very hard for me to manually line that up nice and straight and level. So what you want to do is, if you've got precise move checked, and you've de-leveled your shape like that, just click here in Shapes, go to the shape, click it again. Level. Leveled out, perfect. And just make sure you don't do that again. But if you do, you can fix it again. Now what we're going to do in step 2 is what I'm going to call cutting off the sides. This is something I do. Now, I will also note that most of the cuts I'm going to be making from here on out are going to be pretty sharp. But, just for note, if you wanted to affect the softness of the cuts, you could by holding L1 and pressing square, going into that edit mode, and tweaking this blend amount right up here, or even turning on hard blend. See, that will change the way these cuts are made and give you softer cuts. Really crazy soft. It definitely wouldn't help you, I don't think, but give you softer cuts. But I'm going to just make these sharp cuts going forward. I just wanted to let you in on that so that you know. This is step 2, cutting the side. So I'm just going to make a cut. And you know, you can be the judge of how narrow or wide you want. I usually do it about that way though. About that, like that. That has been step 2. Alright. Now I'm not going to change anything about this really right now. We've got the cubes and we're moving into step 3 with the same cube. Now step 3, I'm going to call the jawline. This is where I'm actually going to determine the jawline of our character. It's like the slope angle of your jaw, whatever, I don't know what anatomical stuff, but basically this is the jawline. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cubes underneath, and it doesn't matter if they overlap, that's fine, and everything. That's why we've got clipped mirror on and all that. But now all I'm going to do is go to the side profile, and I'm going to hold L2, which allows me to rotate, and then with the stick, I'm just going to rotate. This is with the right stick, by the way. I'm going to rotate that at like, I don't know. It's about 45 degrees. It doesn't have to be 45. It's kind of like that. It's the jaw angle, though. And basically, just put it right about there. Just a little below the back of the skull. I like to do it. And I'm going to click and cut that. There we go. Now we cut our jaw angle out. Okay, and that's step 3 complete. So now on to step 4. Now for step 4, I'm going to want to realign these cubes. So I'm going to get back into shapes real quick. Our precise move's still on, so I'm going to click. And we've realigned our cubes. Now the size has changed, but that's okay. We can scale them up or whatever as needed. I'm going to scale them up a bit so that they kind of cover the entire thing. And now this step 4, I like to do the face. Now the face, I'm not going to make completely flat. What I'm going to do is, from this upper view, I'm going to do the rotate of the cubes. And we're going to rotate them at a slight angle like so. I'm going to bring them just a slight angle, though. I like to do it. My approach, my style in Dreams to making humans is a very kind of minimalistic style. But it's kind of like what you would do to arrive at a sort of semi-realism in Dreams. I think maybe the closest thing I can kind of compare it to is like Fortnite or something. It's like that. It looks kind of toon. You know, it doesn't look like photorealism or something, but it's kind of got the proportions and that sort of thing you would expect in a more realistic approach. But you could, you know, tweak this to arrive at just about anything. But here I'm going to put this face. That's about the angle I want. Just a slight angle like that on those. And they can overlap like that. That's fine. That's why we got clipped mirror on again. And I'll just put that in there about so far. And I will just stamp it. Alright. That's what I consider to be my face. The flat part anyway. So now that we got that, let's move on to step 5. Now step 5 is what I'm going to call the cheeks, I guess. I'm not sure if that would be the best terminology for it, but that's what we'll call it. This is step 5. Now we're going to reset our cube again. And it can be maybe a little smaller, I don't know this time. But this time, we're going to get a little weird here, and we're going to turn the cube. We don't necessarily need precise move on for this step. In fact, I'm going to turn it off. This can be a little more free, but what you do is you align your cube there on the sides at kind of an angle. And now you might notice that you're beginning to see the face structure there. And you can alter this kind of by, you know, raising it, lowering it, altering the angle. You know, there's the sharpness of the chin there. You know, but this is basically your cheeks, essentially. And we'll just go for kind of like a reasonable chin there, but align it like so. And there you've got. Stamp it. And now you can see we're starting to see the shape of a head. This thing is now starting to take on the shape of a head, as you can see. And we've only made, what? I think we've, yeah, like 4 cuts. This has been step 5, the cheeks. And yeah, there's probably jokes we could make about that, you know, the cheeks. But we're doing a face. We're not doing another thing. Okay, so let's move on to step 6. Now, step 6 is going to be also very important into making this look like a face. Now, step 6 is what I would call the, it's kind of 2 things, but it's the brow ridge, defining the actual brow ridge, but also essentially the eye sockets. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to reset our cube. I will turn precise move back on before we reset our cube, otherwise it won't reset, but we'll click on the cube and we got it nice. And I'm going to go sideways like this, side profile, rotate our cube. roughly 45 degrees, doesn't have to be. Maybe a little bit above that. But as you can see, this is what we're doing. We're setting up this area, which is the eye sockets, but also the brow ridge. And we want to make, you know, there we got kind of a forehead going on. I'm eyeballing it. I'm not using any special measurements, but I'm eyeballing it for this. But, you know, you're free to do what you like. You know, if you want to, the pickiness level is up to you. But I'm just eyeballing it. We kind of leave a forehead. I'll say this. You can kind of put this area where basically this is where the eyes will be. But you put this line, this cut, see basically over here, you look at the base of the skull back there, you put that a little bit above, and you can't go too wrong, just a little bit above, you know, kind of leave a little forehead there, but there you go. I'm going to go ahead and maybe a little deeper, I don't know. Go ahead and lower. Make that cut. Just one cut. Clean cut. And there you go. That is step 6. And now, really, those 6 steps, we've got the basis here. But I'm not completely done. We want to make this look a little more like a person than it is right now. Although you can start to see it. But we need one feature that really helps people to see a person, is a nose. And so step 7, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a nose. And I'm not going to reset the cube, but I am going to press triangle and turn this into add mode. We're going to actually add something here. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. But we'll be adding a nose here. I will turn that angle a little bit there. Shrink that down just a bit more. And I will I want to edit this shape and turn it into kind of a rectangle. So I'm going to put the L1, hold L1, and press square, and we're going to go into this, and you can see we get this little drag arrow. If we put it on one of those planes of that cube, we can just hold R2 and pull it down and stretch it, and that's what I want to do. You can already see probably from this angle what I'm going for. You can probably see that we're getting, and I'll press circle to go out of shape editor. There we go. We've got, see how that looks like a nose? And because we've got clipped mirror on, look at this. Let me demonstrate. If we go in, what clipped mirror does is when we go beyond, you see how that works? It cuts it. So clipped mirror is very handy for the human face type situation. But really, we're just going to set up a basic nose here. Another thing I like to do, and this is probably one of the only points in this that I will do this, is for this nose, is I'm going to go into the L1 square shape editor mode, and we're going to turn up the blend amount just a touch. As you can see, if you do that, you see you can get you see how you get that nose like bridge effect. I believe that's called the nose bridge on, anatomy. But you can see how you get that, and we can maybe move this out just a touch, I don't know. But you can see we get more of it kind of looks more like a nose. I'll soften that just a touch. I am a very minimalistic type when it comes to this, but I'll talk about that a little more when we get to a completed state. So I'll hit stamp on that. I got it in a nice position. I like that. Now you can really see how this is looking like a human face. Because we got that nose in there. You can really see that. Now what do we need next? Now I believe this was step 7? Yes, it was. We added a nose as step 7, so now we're moving on to step 8. Now, step 8, this is the mouth. Now, I will say, again, at this point, the mouth I don't think we need precise move on. We can eyeball this and kind of feel it out. It's not as big a deal. It's not as difficult, though. We don't need precise move, but I'm going to go back to subtract mode for the mouth. But basically, at this point, probably some of you watching, this may be enough where you're comfortable, Once you get that shape, you can start to see what you could do, probably on your own, what you could do next. So there's a point at which, like I said, when you got a form to work with, your brain starts clicking. You start seeing, oh, I could make that, I could shave that off or add something here, and that will then it's going to look even more like I want, that's really my intention in this video, is to try to get you to that point. You know, not to tell you how to do everything. I'm just trying to get you to the point where you're comfortable and you're like, oh, well, I see what I could do with it now to get what I want, you know? But this is, we're just going to put a little mouth, cut a little mouth right about, that might be too low. Maybe, I don't know. We might have to raise that nose a bit, proportionally speaking, but I'll just make that cut. Okay. So we got our mouth. So let's look at even more like a human face. Now it's basically arrived at a human face. And that was step 8. We put a little mouth in there. There's some extra things, though, we could go over here. And we will. Now, if we want to add, we want to take it to step 9. This is something I will do. And that, let's reset this just because. Oh, yeah. We have to put it on precise move. Don't forget to do that. Otherwise, it won't set. But let's reset this. Get it all lined up. I'm going to put a little, you know, kind of what, divot or whatever under the mouth. Maybe soften that just a touch. Just a little. I don't know if that works or not. Kind of. I don't know. It's a little bit stronger than what I'd like. But, I'll put that in there, though. I kind of like that. Let's see. Now, we got that in. I like to put that in. At this point, I'm going to say we have basically arrived at our framework for a human head. This is the basics of setting it up in about what? We took about eight steps, about 8 cuts. Well, no, that'd be 7 cuts, because our first step was putting out the object itself. But about 7 cuts, and we got this. And this is very minimalistic and simplistic right now. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of, as we continue on, I am going to basically now kind of free model with it, and we're just going to mess. This is not part of the steps. I've showed you the initial steps to get to this place, and I would encourage you to follow those steps. And once you get to this place, you see, you have something to work with. You can become, you know, experimental, like I said, and you can just, it will start to flow much better. You no longer have just that empty slate. You have something to work with and maneuver as you want. So, let's say, one of the things I like to do when I'm about this stage is, for a human being, is I'd like to add some, like, lips. Let's see, like a lower, I usually just add a lower lip. It's a stylistic thing. I don't usually go for an upper lip. I'm not sure why precisely that is, but we can easily put one sort of like that, as you could see. That looks very, very good. Now, another thing you could do is you could put some basic ears on the sides, you know. Very basic, just stretched. But the more you go, you see, you've basically crossed that threshold now, where you can see it. And once you can see it, it becomes a lot easier to work with. And you can figure out your own direction to take with this. It's not like, you know, when you just have nothing there, well, big ears there. There you go. You can kind of put some ears. The ears would probably be about, top of the ears comes to the brow, I believe. That's the rule. I'm not sure. I forget all the artsy-fartsy rules and all this stuff. It's like there's proportions and all that stuff. And you see, I haven't arrived really at, like, you know, this isn't a photorealistic human head by any means, but this is the basis for that, because like I'm doing now is we've got those initial steps down, and we're just seeing things that we could, another thing we can do if we want to, you know, we want to make those. There's a good question about how you want to make eyes. What do you want to do about that? I'm going to bring the blend up a little bit so we can, I kind of like that. This is something I will sometimes often do. But we can, you know, we could even do that there to kind of soften that right there. And I'm going to bring that out for eyes a little bit. But, you know, we haven't, Now, as far as animating this and implementing it into an actual game or something, now that's the trick. You can, and we'll discuss that a little bit, but you can make, like I'm seeing now, I could kind of refine this by shaving things, you know, off here, kind of like that. Kind of shave a little more off of that. Let's kind of make this forehead a little more graduated there. You see, you can do, see how it's starting to change. And you start to see this. This is what I want to get you to, this, where you can see this yourself and you can just do it yourself and you can make your own decisions about it. There, I'll make a kind of a chin thing there. But you can see that yourself. Kind of, we could taper that a little bit. I don't know. It depends. Taper it just a bit. And you know. And I'm using, like I said, again, very sharp cuts. Which is not the way you have to do it. You can experiment with all this stuff once you get comfortable doing this. You can go, you know, what if you were to do this? I've done this also mostly with a cube. What if you were to try other shapes for some of these things, you know? Like, what if you were to try a cylinder for the nose, or... Excuse me, I'm going to put this... oh, wait, that isn't on. I want to try to... But what if you were to... Let's... I kind of want to taper the side of the nose there, like... Oh, what if we want to put some nostrils on the sides, you know what I'm saying? We can go in... here we go, we got a sphere. Let's make it a half sphere. Go into the edit. Half sphere, there we go. We could elongate this just a bit. There you go. See little... Now we're starting to add more of like the little details to it. Of like nostrils and so on. There you go. Perhaps we could put a bump on the end of the nose. Just take a sphere. Make it look a little more like a nose, you know? People kind of have a bump at the end of their nose, you know? A little bit of a bump. Stamp that. There, you see? And, you know, you could do all kinds of things. You could go on all day. You could... What if we want the nose to, you know, be convex, concave? What if we want to, you know, shave? Oh, you can use different shapes. You can be like... We're going to use a cylinder. We're going to shave off, I don't know, this part here. We can even soften that a bit. You know, give it a... I don't know. It really depends. It depends on what you're trying to arrive at. And what you ultimately want. But you see, I've shown you. I've shown you there, hopefully, in like 7 steps, how to arrive at that basis where you can now... do this, and you can mess with it, you know, you can align all these, tweak any part of this to your liking, and get different results that are to your own liking, and it will suit your needs. But basically what I wanted to try to help you do was get over that initial hurdle of just, well, I have nothing, how do I get something to work with? But now you've got something to work with, and I encourage you to go ahead and do that. Follow the steps. Do the steps, especially if you're real new. Follow it closely. Do the steps, you know. And then once you get comfortable, you know, how many tries it takes you to get comfortable after maybe 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know. You go ahead and experiment with that and just figure out what you want. You might want something more minimalistic than this. You might want something way more detailed than this. But once you got that basis, you can go ahead and arrive at that. You'll find a way to fix it the way you need it to be. You know, you'll see all kinds of things as you go. You'll be like, well, Billy didn't, you know, he could have done this. You know, it's like, why didn't he do this? It's go ahead and try that. Do the thing that you come up with in your brain. Because that's progress for you. You learn how to do it. You know, you figure out the answers. But I got you, hopefully, to a step where you can go further, you know, get over that initial nastiness, where you don't have any clue, you know, what to even start with. So hopefully we've solved that problem. I will talk just a brief little bit. Also, let's roll the credits for our supporters. who support us on Coffee monthly. They're very wonderful people. We really appreciate that. Really do. The credits go by for these people, and if you want to be in these monthly credits, you can also go over to the Coffee and do that. But appreciate it, all of you. Now, I was going to say, about animating something like this, or, using it in an actual game, there's a lot of questions that do arise, like, well, what if you want to make this move? And, I didn't put eyes on him, I didn't really go into depth on that. I didn't really go into detail about, like, making a moving mouth, which, Dreams has its limitations. There are going to be hard limitations you can't really get past. I didn't put hair on him. But, there's going to be all kinds of questions. But really, the basis that I've given you can help you deal with all that. There's ways around those things, and there's approaches, like to the eyes and making things move. I will admit, making, like, especially facial expressions in Dreams, it can be a real hassle for, like, a human character, especially depending on how much more realistic you're trying to make them. It's a lot more difficult than, say, like a really toon character or whatever. What do they call it? Chibi or whatever? That kind of thing. It's probably a lot easier in Dreams to go for. But there are ways. I'm not saying it's impossible, but there are ways around all this. But I've given the basis here, hopefully. And hopefully that's helped a number of you watching. But I appreciate your watching, especially if you've stuck around this far, all the way to the end, basically. We appreciate if you're new, if you're not already subscribed and you really enjoyed this, consider subscribing. We try to put out stuff every weekend, at least one video every weekend. Lately we've been doing 2, but we try to at least get one new tutorial or something out every weekend, at the very least, on this channel. But yeah, and if you've already subscribed, or if you haven't, either way, definitely give us a like, leave a comment, if this helped, or if you have some kind of, if you have a suggestion of something you'd like to see, either in logic terms, how to do something with the logic gadgets, or maybe sculpture, depends. Art subjects can sometimes be hard to tutorialize, because art's there's so many different approaches people take and what they want, You can't really always do a step-by-step on, how do you make this or that with art and sculpture, but sometimes, like this time, I could. But yeah, leave a comment, leave your thoughts down there. We always try to respond to that. Additionally, again, if you do want to support us monetarily, there's ways to do that. We've got a link in our description. You can do that in various ways. But, if you're helping us out in any special way, and all of it counts, subscriptions, monthly donations, likes, comments, it all helps. And we appreciate it all. So, I hope this helped somebody out there, and I hope you all have a great day, wherever you are. This has been Billy Cultist. Bye-bye.